Hey everybody, I'm Philip, and today I'm going to talk about Welcome to Derry, Episode 3. And honestly, I kind of like this one. There's a few nitpicks. It's the same nitpicks that I've had with the previous two. I think the episode did a really good job of moving the plot along and expanding on the lore a little bit. Everything right now is honestly kind of doing its own thing, but it's all within striking distance of each other because they're all converging to the same thing. They're all converging on it in some way. So this episode felt way more locked in from a lore perspective, but the major nitpick I have is we are still meeting our quota of 2 really bad CGI events per episode, and it's for some reason always 2. I don't understand why. So we had the CGI stuff in the beginning, in the woods, and then we had the CGI stuff later at the end. So once again, the CGI, the really bad CGI bookended the episode like it did in episode 1. That's getting irritating. But as I said, I think this one did a really good job on being more laser focused on where it's going, and we had some massive hints on potentially a return, perhaps. I'm not opposed to it. I will say that this episode was one that, for the first time so far this season, I do wish I'd done a reaction to it, just based on the stuff that happened. And then you could also see me just get really, really irritated with the horrible CGI. Good God, good God. But let's go and get to my notes, and we can go more in depth about what happened and what I thought. So let's go.
Philip's notes.
All right, so we open on a carnival, like a circus type thing in 1908. We see a boy who is walking through the carnival area and goes into one of those what are they called? Look at these wonders kind of things, you know, with like the bearded lady and all that stuff. The taboo tent, I guess. And the kid goes in there and sees a guy missing an eye, which scares him, and he runs out. And fear. Like that should have been a trigger right then. Like, okay, something he's afraid of. All right. And the year being 1908 makes sense because it comes back every 27 years. So, if I recall correctly, the season we're in takes place in 1962. So 1908, 1935, 1962. So it all lines up with the timing of things. So he and his father leave the carnival, and the car breaks down. He sends the son to go buy some water from some Native Americans who have a little stand set up on the side of the road. Also, the kid gets a slingshot from his dad. His dad won it for him. And then we fast forward to them hanging out and running through a field together. And then he runs into some woods. And she says, no, stop. Don't go in there, that kind of thing. And he keeps running. And then the guy with the missing eyeball starts chasing him. And this is when we get the bad CGI, part 1 in the episode. And so the bad CGI monster chases him. The girl shoots it with the slingshot, hits him in his other eye. And then eventually they both get out. And we find out that it can't leave the woods. And that was the opening, and I liked it. Initially, I was like, man, I'm enjoying the 1908 stuff much more than the 1962 stuff. Which changed as I watched the episode. So I thought it was a strong opener from the aspect of, manifesting a fear and capitalizing on it, knowing that the entity has a hunting ground that it is kind of trapped to. So I thought it was a very effective opener, and it set up future plot stuff nicely. I just didn't like the CGI. Like, you tone down the CGI, and it's a stronger scene, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's gonna be par for the course, looks like, for the episode. Didn't really care for how far they took it, which is usually the issue I have with the CGI, is how far they take it. It just goes from creepy moments to comical, and that's not what you want. And it happened here again, so that sucks. And I even wrote, bad CGI, not even 10 minutes in. So, yeah. And then we see Ronnie go to school, and people have defaced her locker, talking about her dad being a killer. And it was written in lipstick, so you think that the Mean Girls did it. The kid, I forget his name now. I didn't write it down. Will's friend. He says, "This is America. You can't just throw people in jail for nothing." And Will says, "We talking about the same country?" I laughed out loud. I thought it was really funny the way they did that. We cut to Lily, who is in Juniper Hill, and she's being released. So she wasn't like committed there. They just upped the dosage of her meds, and she is talking with a very nice, orderly lady. And the notion people only believe what they can see themselves. And sorry, my speech issues are acting up. And that's foreshadowing for later in the episode, but I like that idea. And then we cut back to the military. They talk about digging up the automobile. I do believe it came from 1935, which would line up with the 27 years. And the notion that whatever is buried out there was buried 300 years before the automobile. So that made me wonder just the records of it and how they know about it, which we're uncovering it slowly. I think they said something like there were some pictures taken, and in the pictures, they cited the entity in one of its forms. So they know what they're looking. They're looking for an entity. Like they know specifically what they're looking for a lot more than I thought. I assume that maybe they were just looking for something more amorphous, but they seem to be very locked in. Like they're looking for it. And that part I don't know about yet. I'm not going to crap all over it because, we'll just see how they handle it. But right now it's kind of, how do they know so much? Especially if it only comes back every 27 years. But that's just talking about when it was buried. Like I said, it's been a minute since I've read the book. I was a kid. But I do know that Pennywise landed on Earth like what, million years ago, in a meteorite. I don't remember the exact year that it woke up to feed for the first time. I want to say early 1700s. So if it's 1908 minus 300 years, that's 1608. So I don't know. I could have my timelines wrong though. So I could just be. I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, it was buried, so it was out before. But if it was buried in 1608, maybe they said almost 300 years. 1700s to 1900s, that's only 200 years. So I'm probably looking way too much into it, but I'm trying to like line things up from book to narrative in TV show to make sense of it. I'm sure we'll get more, but it just makes me wonder how they know so much. How did they figure out about it? When did the town figure out? When did they figure out that the entity in the picture was it? How did they figure that out? Because it talks about its forms. So is it not a clown in that one then? Because obviously it can shapeshift. So yeah, I don't know. It makes me wonder. I'm kind of rambling here about it. But I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. It just seems very interesting that they are so locked into what they are looking for so specifically. But hopefully, as the episodes go on, we'll find out. Military guy in charge, whose name is Shaw, wrote it down, says that Halloran needs motivation. They want to put him in the air and use him as a compass to try and locate the entity better, which, if I can remember, I'll come back to that, because when we find out, this just seems so strange that their only course of action is to try and capitalize on this thing that only wakes up every 27 years and weaponize it. It just seems stupid. And not that it's dumb as a plot device, just that it just, from a character motivation standpoint, it just doesn't seem very smart. So, yeah. They're talking about Halloran needing motivation. They need to give him something that put a mark on that thing a long time ago. Halloran gets handed a cigar box, which we don't know what's inside of at the time. He opens up the cigar box, and it's a slingshot from the opening scene, which I thought was really cool. I was like, okay, we're calling back to it already. And it was important. Like, everything in the opening scene was important. The boy, the girl, the slingshot, all of it. I liked that. Except for the bad CGI. And then we see a shot of the Native American girl as a child, and then she transposes her to an adult. And they're at this meeting about, as I said earlier, about them digging upon their sacred lands. And she says she doesn't want to stop them, She wants to see what they're trying to do, which I also find very interesting because she has seen it as well in the flesh. It just seems like everyone is a lot more laid back about what's going on than they really should be, especially people who have come in contact with it. So that has me curious. And then we're back on the vertibird thing. Halloran is full on like transferred to its lair, which is very familiar. And we get the first Pennywise drop, which is one of the reasons I wish I'd reacted to this one, because I was like, oh shit, okay, we're going there. Okay, okay. I wasn't sure if we would or not. And he looks up and he sees all the people floating in the sky, and we all float down here. And then the Pennywise thing drops. We see eyes glow inside, and then things are falling from the sky. He's freaking out. He's trying to like open the hatch that's shut behind him, but in reality, he's actually opening the hatch to the back of the vertibird, and it's opening. So it is trying to get him to unalive himself. And I like that scene. Halloran gets stopped. They go back, and Shaw's like, "Did you see it?" And Halloran's like, "It saw me." And then he says, "It wasn't supposed to see us. It wasn't supposed to know." Again, that's just very odd to me. I don't know. It just is just. It's like you're playing with fire, not expecting to get burned, but it's fire, so you're gonna get burned. It just seems kind of stupid on the part of the military with what they are trying to do. Like, there's no better way to resolve this issue. All right. We're back at the secondhand store that's run by Rose, the Native American woman who was the girl in the beginning. And Shaw walks in, and then we realize that Shaw was the boy from the beginning. So what I want to circle back to is, if Shaw knows what happened and Rose knows what happened, what they both saw, and why are they not more freaked out about what they're doing? Shaw I can kind of forgive a bit, because when he moved to Derry, you forget. That makes sense. But if he was gone from Derry and he forgot, then how did he know that this thing could be... Like, how did he know it fed off of his fear? How did he know that he could weaponize it? How did he know he could find it? How did he know any of this? And why isn't he more freaked out? I could be reading too much into it. Like, I could see him forgetting, but like, if he left and forgot, then when did he remember? And then when did he remember enough to not only, like, he wouldn't have like just so happened to be stationed there, and then this conflict happens with like Korea and whatever, and then he's all like, oh, I'm remembering things. I know something that can weaponize fear. How do you know that? It was a one-off. You don't know specifically that it could do that. You just had a really, really, really weird experience. But how do you know how specific its powers are? How do you know how specific its powers are when you only encountered it one time? I'm hoping they explain that a little more. And then Halloran goes over to Hanlon and his wife's house for dinner. Halloran asks about Will, Hanlon's son. And then when they're out on the porch talking, Hanlon says, "I never told you about my son." And then he says that he felt like something in the back of his head right before he asked. Then we find out, because of that Halloran was there the night that Hanlon got attacked. And that when he was being attacked, the person who wasn't attacking him, he felt that same thing like in the back of his head. It's basically Halloran reaching in and like reading his mind and trying to like see his thoughts and whatnot. Because he says, stay out of my head. And fair enough. And then a giant bit of foreshadowing. Halloran says to Hanlon, the part of your brain that's supposed to be afraid, it's like it's not even there. So if you are missing that part of your brain, or that part of like a brain function, you are immune to its power. That's 100% going to come into play later on. Guarantee it. And then we find out that the friend, I can remember, Will's friend, I remember his name, he knows how to summon the dead. And they go to a cemetery to do that. But they have a camera to take a picture of it, because earlier they said people only believe what they can see themselves. But how do you get people to believe what they're saying, to believe that Ronnie's dad is innocent, to believe that Lily isn't crazy? How do you do that? You get proof. So they take a camera with them and do this seance thing, and ends up working. But unfortunately, bad CGI, part 2, it looked like the freaking Ghostbusters. The bad one. It looked cheap. It looked corny. I would rather have had like zombie people crawling out of the graves with practical effects than what we got. I think that would have been a lot cooler. But I guess if they were riding bikes and taking pictures, you need them to float in the sky like a ghost in Ghostbusters. But yeah, they're all being attacked by the ghosts, and they're all taking turns dropping and picking up the camera and taking pictures. And there's a point where Will is in a crypt. I thought he was taken. I thought that, because the other 3 had gotten out and Will wasn't there. I thought for sure he was taken by it. I'll just call it Pennywise, because Pennywise has been name dropped. I'm like, oh God, we dropped the hint about his dad being immune to fear. Okay, if he needs to go look for his son to combat Pennywise to get him back, there we go. Which might still happen, but I thought it was happening there. But no, Will comes out, and they all go to the school. They break in, go to the photo lab, and I wrote, I miss dark rooms. I used to live in the dark room in college. I've been very much into photography for decades, and just seeing it was very nostalgic for me. Yeah, it was great. It was great. But they developed the film from the pictures they took, and to my surprise, things actually showed up. Wasn't expecting it. Like, they saw the pictures of the dead kids, and then the last one is a picture that Will took in the crypt, which was, as they put, a clown. So we're all but pointing to that. I didn't know we were going to go there. I thought this was going to be like an independent thing separate from Pennywise, but I'm not going to hate it, and it'd be cool to see Bill Skarsgård back in the role. Overall, as said, it was a fine episode. I enjoyed it. You take the dodgy CGI out of it, you have a stronger episode. Every scene with the bad CGI, I think you could do it in different ways to improve it. You don't need to go that far with it. And so much of it you could do with practical effects and be much more effective. Like the thing with Ronnie and her mom could have been practical. It would have been way more effective. Like a kid alone in the woods being stalked is scary enough. I don't think it needed the extra layer of CGI on it. Although you could have done it a different way. But yeah, that's all for my notes. Anything else are from my patrons over on Patreon. So for the first time this season, I'm looking forward to next week and what happens and where we go from here. The big question is going to be, since those pictures came out, which again surprises the hell out of me, I expected them to be blank. Not blank, but like empty. No ghosts or anything, just like there's some trees, like that kind of thing. But since they have proof, what's it going to do? And will the proof, especially the last one of Pennywise, will that be fueling its power? Will Shaw see it? Will Rose see it? Will, I don't know, that whole thing is still weird to me. But will the fear that could be instilled on people by seeing it, will that fuel it? I'm really surprised the picture didn't come to life with more bad CGI. So that's the big question, what's going to happen with the pictures? With Derry being as broken as it is, will the people even care? Because this is something that the town just ignores and wants to sweep under the rug. So definitely intrigued on where we go from here, and looking forward to next week, as said. I just wish we had dialed it back with the stupid CGI. It's really, really a detriment to these episodes, and it's not needed. Especially once Pennywise comes back in full force. There's a lot you could do with him because he is a shapeshifter, but I wish we could do it more practical and less computer generated. So that's just me, though. All right, I need to go rest my throat and grab something to drink. And yeah, if you saw it, episode 3, what did you think? There's a lot to process here. I was taking notes as I was watching. It kind of feels like, if you remember Stranger Things season 1, if you remember, the kids were doing their own things, the teenagers were doing their own things, and the adults were doing their own things. And then, as we got to the end, they converged. That's what this feels like. That we have all these pocket groups that are going to converge. We'll see if that happens and what happens when that happens. What's going to happen right now is I'm going to go get that drink. So, as always, I don't have a fancy outro, so I will simply say thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.